When I was 8 years old, my father was killed in an automobile accident. The police were chasing him, and this is how he got killed. I didn't know that at that time that my father was a criminal. I can't tell you that. I know for sure that he wasn't a gangster because I found that out later. He was a thief, a common crook. I loved my father. My father was a great provider to my mother, but he was also very abusive, mentally abusive. He never struck her. But I got to tell you something. I remember them days so well that I never done what my father done. It taught me a lesson, actually. I admired my father. The day he was killed in that accident, I was waiting for him with my mother and my sister. My mother was 9 months pregnant with my brother to come home, and then we were going to go visit some cousins. He didn't come home, so my mother told me I had to go to bed, and she was nervous. She was walking the floor. She was making phone calls. The next day I woke up and I seen all these people in the house, and my mother pulled me to the side, and she was sitting in a chair, and she told me, like, how could she tell a kid 8 years old that you just lost your father? So she gave me that story, well, your father's in heaven, he won't be back, and he still loves you. Well, I didn't comprehend that, I didn't know what the hell she was. I knew he wasn't going to come back in the tone of her voice, but I couldn't comprehend that he was dead. And as the years went on in my life, I used to hear my cousins, I used to hear his friends talk about what a great man my father was, what a great criminal he was, how tough he was, and how ruthless he was. And you hear these stories through your life, so I actually was brainwashed because I wanted to be just like my father. Now, my mother never talked bad about my father, never said he was a criminal. So I could honestly tell you my mother tried her best to make me a good kid. But it's the environment I grew up in. I was a product of my environment. I grew up on the east side of Chicago around Grand and Ogden. We lived in a rear house. My father is responsible for killing 2 of the Black Hands. That is before I shouldn't say organized crime, before the outfit or Capone was in style. He killed these 2 Black Hand guys. They called them Black Hand because they were old mafiosos. They were from Italy, and they used to muscle all the Italian people and the Polish people, immigrants. My father killed them because they happened to they used to put these paper Black Hands on your door, and that meant that you're going to have to pay protection fees or whatever. And he got crazy and he went and he killed them all, him and his friends. But he didn't become an alpha guy because he didn't want to. Then a gang started in Chicago. It was called the 42 gang. And Al Capone came here, and that's when all that stuff started with Al Capone, the 42 gang, which all these guys in the 42 gang became bosses in the Chicago outfit eventually. So hearing all these stories about my father as growing up, I thought it was pretty fascinating, and I wanted to become a thief. But I didn't want to become an outfit guy. But I was always difficult to control for my mother. I used to steal out of the paper bags, and that time you'd buy a newspaper on your honor. You'd throw a nickel in there, and the bag would be hanging on a pole. I used to chinny myself up the pole and steal all the money out of there. Finally, the guy caught me. He actually just seen me do it, but I got away from him. So I knew I had to pick up another profession. So my mother talked me into being a shoe shine boy. And I wasn't too good in school then either. I used to muscle everybody in school for their milk money, because then they give you a nickel and you'd buy a bottle of milk. So I decided to shine shoes. I was probably around 11 or 12 years old when I first ran into my best friend. at that time, or became my best friend. His name was Anthony or Tony Spilotro.